Before I tell you about the most earth-shattering betrayal in professional wrestling history, before I explain how everything you thought you knew about loyalty and family in WWE just got completely destroyed, before I reveal why Jacob Fatu returning to Smackdown and joining the Vision is going to make you angrier than any storyline decision in the past decade, I need you to understand something critical. The Bloodline, the faction that has dominated WWE for years, the family that Roman Reigns built into the most powerful force in professional wrestling, the dynasty that seemed unbreakable and eternal, just got stabbed in the back by one of their own, and the implications of Jacob Fatu walking down that ramp, shaking hands with Trick Williams and Obafemi, and turning his back on everything the Anoa'i family represents is so catastrophic, so unforgivable, so absolutely rage-inducing that by the time I'm finished explaining every layer of this betrayal, you're going to be demanding answers from everyone involved. This isn't just another faction switch, this isn't just a wrestler changing allegiances for a better opportunity, this is a family member spitting in the face of generations of tradition, dishonoring the legacy of his ancestors, and choosing outsiders over blood relatives, and if that doesn't make your blood boil, if that doesn't make you want to march to WWE headquarters and demand explanations, then you haven't been paying attention to what the Bloodline means, what the Vision represents, and why Jacob Fatu making this choice is the single most disrespectful act we've witnessed in modern wrestling. Let me set the scene for you because the way this unfolded on SmackDown was designed for maximum shock value, maximum emotional damage, and maximum controversy. The show opened with the Vision in the ring, Trick Williams holding a microphone with that smug expression he always has, Obafemi standing behind him looking like an absolute monster, both of them radiating confidence and arrogance after weeks of running through the SmackDown roster like they own the place. Trick was cutting one of his promos about how the Vision is the future of WWE, about how the old guard needs to step aside, about how traditional factions and family dynasties are outdated concepts that have no place in modern professional wrestling. He was specifically targeting the Bloodline, calling them relics, calling their dominance a thing of the past, saying that Roman Reigns and his family have been holding younger talent down for too long. The crowd was booing because even though the Vision has been presented as this dominant force, fans still respect what the Bloodline has accomplished, still recognize the historical significance of that faction, still understand that you don't just disrespect the Anoa'i family without consequences. But then Trick said something that made everyone in the arena go silent. He said that the Vision had been recruiting, that they'd identified the perfect person to join their group, someone who understands that family loyalty is a weakness in professional wrestling, someone who's ready to put their own career ambitions above outdated concepts like blood relations and generational tradition. He said this person was tired of being held back by the Bloodline's expectations, tired of being told what they could and couldn't do based on family politics, tired of waiting their turn while older family members hogged the spotlight. And then he said the words that made everyone's stomach drop. He said Jacob Fatu has seen the light, Jacob Fatu understands that the Vision represents his best path to superstardom, and Jacob Fatu is ready to turn his back on the Bloodline and join the winning team. The music hit before anyone could fully process what Trick Williams had just said, and Jacob Fatu walked out onto that stage looking absolutely resolute, no hesitation in his movements, no conflict visible on his face, just pure determination and focus as he made his way down to the ring. The commentary team was losing their minds, trying to process what they were seeing, asking if this was really happening, questioning whether Jacob Fatu understood the gravity of what he was about to do. The crowd was split between shock, anger, and disbelief. You could hear people screaming no, you could see fans shaking their heads, you could feel the energy in the building shift from typical wrestling show excitement to genuine emotional devastation because everyone knows what the Bloodline means to the Anoa'i family, everyone understands the significance of that faction, everyone recognizes that this isn't just storyline drama but a fundamental violation of real family bonds and traditions. Jacob Fatu stepped into that ring, stood face to face with Trick Williams, and when Trick extended his hand, Fatu took it without hesitation, sealing his betrayal of the Bloodline in front of the entire world. Obafemi put his massive hand on Fatu's shoulder in a show of solidarity, Trick raised Fatu's arm in victory, and the Vision stood united in the center of the ring while the crowd rained down boos and criticism and pure vitriol because what they just witnessed wasn't just a faction change, it was a family being torn apart, it was tradition being disrespected, it was everything the Bloodline has built over years being undermined by one of their own choosing personal ambition over family loyalty. Now we need to talk about who Jacob Fatu is and why this betrayal is so particularly devastating, because if you're not familiar with his background and his connection to the Bloodline, you might not fully grasp why this is such an unforgivable act. Jacob Fatu is a member of the legendary Anoa'i family, the same family that gave us The Rock, Roman Reigns, the Usos, Omega, Yokozuna, Rikishi, and countless other legendary performers who've shaped professional wrestling over multiple generations. The Anoa'i family isn't just another wrestling family, they're royalty in this business. They've earned their status through decades of excellence, through loyalty to each other, through maintaining their traditions and their values even as the wrestling business has changed dramatically around them. Being part of that family comes with expectations and responsibilities, but it also comes with opportunities and support that most wrestlers would kill for. Jacob Fatu has been positioned as the bloodline's ultimate enforcer, the most physically intimidating member of the family, someone with incredible agility and power despite his size, someone who can do things in the ring that men his weight have no business being able to do. He's been talked about for years as the next big thing in the Anoa'i family, the person who would eventually take the bloodline to new heights, the performer who combined the best attributes of all his family members into one devastating package. Roman Reigns has publicly endorsed him, the Usos have vouched for him, Solo Sikoa has worked with him, everyone in that family has invested time and energy into building Jacob Fatu up as a crucial piece of the bloodline's future. And this is how he repays that investment, this is how he shows gratitude for all the opportunities and support his family has given him, by turning his back on all of them and joining a faction specifically designed to destroy everything the bloodline represents. The disrespect isn't just directed at the current members of the bloodline, it's directed at every member of the Anoa'i family who came before, every legend who built the foundation that Jacob Fatu is now standing on, every person who sacrificed and struggled to create opportunities for future generations. When Fatu shook Trick Williams' hand, he wasn't just betraying Roman Reigns or the Usos or Solo Sikoa, he was dishonoring The Rock, he was disrespecting Rikishi, he was spitting on the legacy of Yokozuna and Umaga and every other family member who gave everything to this business. That's what makes this so unforgivable, so rage-inducing, so absolutely infuriating for anyone who understands wrestling history and respects family tradition. Let's examine the vision and why Jacob Fatu joining them makes this betrayal even worse than it would be if he'd just gone solo or joined some other faction. The vision has been presented as the antithesis of everything traditional wrestling factions represent. They're young, they're brash, they're disrespectful of history and legacy, they openly mock the concept of paying dues or respecting veterans. Trick Williams built his entire character around being this confident, almost arrogant performer who believes his natural talent and charisma entitle him to success without having to grind through the traditional path that most wrestlers follow. Obafemi is this dominant physical specimen who destroys everyone in his path with no regard for their accomplishments or their status in the company. Together, they represent a new generation that doesn't care about tradition, doesn't respect lineage, doesn't believe that family connections or historical significance should matter in modern professional wrestling. For Jacob Fatu to align himself with that philosophy, to join a group that openly disrespects everything his family has built, to stand side by side with people who've been mocking the bloodline for weeks, that's not just a career decision, that's a statement of values. That's Jacob Fatu saying he agrees with the vision's worldview, that he believes family loyalty and traditional values are outdated concepts that hold people back. Can you imagine the conversations that must have happened backstage before this happened? Can you imagine Roman Reigns being told that Jacob Fatu was considering joining the Vision? Can you imagine the Usos trying to talk sense into their family member, trying to explain why this would be the biggest mistake of his career? Can you imagine the anguish and the anger and the sense of betrayal that must be consuming the bloodline right now? The timing of this betrayal is also significant and makes it even more calculated and cruel. The bloodline has been dealing with internal issues lately. There's been tension between Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. The Usos have been questioning some of Roman's decisions. There's been speculation about whether the bloodline might be fracturing from within. This was the moment when they needed to show unity, when they needed everyone pulling in the same direction, when they needed family members supporting each other against external threats. Instead, Jacob Fatu chose this moment of vulnerability to stab them in the back, to align himself with their enemies, to make the bloodline look weak and divided in front of the entire WWE universe. That's not just betrayal, that's strategic betrayal, that's choosing the exact worst moment to turn on your family for maximum damage, and that level of calculation makes this even harder to forgive or understand. The reaction from the bloodline has been radio silence so far, and that silence is almost scarier than if they'd immediately responded with violence or threats. Roman Reigns hasn't posted anything on social media, hasn't cut any promos, hasn't made any public statements about Jacob Fatu's betrayal. The Usos have stayed quiet as well, no tweets, no Instagram posts, no interviews addressing what happened. Solo Sikoa, who's usually quick to respond to disrespect with physical violence, has also remained mysteriously silent. That silence suggests they're planning something, they're coordinating their response, they're making sure that when they do react to this betrayal, it's going to be comprehensive and devastating. The calm before the storm is always more terrifying than the storm itself, and right now the bloodline is in that calm phase, gathering their strength, planning their revenge, preparing to make Jacob Fatu regret every single second of his decision to turn his back on his family. What's particularly infuriating from a fan perspective is watching someone throw away everything that's been built for them, watching someone squander opportunities that thousands of wrestlers would sacrifice anything to have, watching someone disrespect a legacy that took generations to build. Jacob Fatu was positioned to be the future of the bloodline. He was going to inherit leadership of the most dominant faction in modern WWE history. He was going to have the full support and resources of one of wrestling's most powerful families behind him. Instead, he chose to align himself with a faction that's been around for a few months, that has no history, that has no proven longevity, that could fall apart at any moment because it's not built on the foundation of family and tradition but on the shifting sands of individual ambition and temporary alliances. Trick Williams and Obafemi must be thrilled right now because they just pulled off the biggest recruitment coup in recent WWE history. They didn't just add a talented performer to their faction, they stole a generational talent from the bloodline, they created a massive rift in the most powerful family in professional wrestling, they made a statement that the Vision is capable of taking whatever they want from whoever they want regardless of history or tradition or family bonds. This immediately elevates the Vision from being a promising faction to being a legitimate threat to WWE's entire power structure, because if they can convince Jacob Fatu to turn on the bloodline, who else might they convince to betray their alliances and their loyalties? The broader implications for WWE storytelling are massive because this opens up so many potential directions for future programming. You obviously have the Bloodline versus the Vision as a central conflict that can carry SmackDown for months, you have the personal element of family betrayal that adds emotional weight to every interaction, you have the philosophical battle between traditional values and new generation disrespect, you have the physical matchups between some of WWE's most talented performers. But beyond that immediate conflict, you have questions about whether other factions are vulnerable to similar betrayals, whether other wrestlers might be convinced to turn on their groups, whether the Vision is going to continue recruiting and building an even larger coalition of performers who reject traditional wrestling values. There's also the uncomfortable question of whether Jacob Fatu might have had legitimate grievances that led to this decision, whether maybe the bloodline wasn't treating him fairly, whether maybe Roman Reigns was holding him back or using him without giving him proper credit, whether maybe the family dynamics were suffocating his individual ambitions. We haven't heard Fatu's side of the story yet, we don't know what his reasoning is, we don't know what promises the Vision made to him or what issues he had with the bloodline that made him feel like leaving was his only option. And honestly, it doesn't matter how good his reasons might be, because turning your back on family, especially in the Anoa'i culture where family bonds are sacred and unbreakable, is never going to be justified or excusable regardless of personal grievances or career considerations. The wrestling community has been absolutely exploding with reactions to this storyline development. Social media has been consumed with debate about whether Jacob Fatu made the right decision, whether the Vision represents a legitimate alternative to the bloodline, whether this is the beginning of the bloodline's decline, whether other family members might follow Fatu's lead and leave as well. You have fans who are genuinely angry at Jacob Fatu for this betrayal, posting long threads about why family should come before individual ambition, about why tradition matters in professional wrestling, about why turning on the bloodline is unforgivable. You have other fans who are excited about the storytelling possibilities, about seeing a major faction war unfold, about watching Jacob Fatu potentially thrive in an environment where he's not in Roman Reigns' shadow. You have people analyzing every interaction between Fatu and other bloodline members over the past few months, looking for signs that this betrayal was coming, trying to figure out if there were clues that everyone missed. What happens at the next SmackDown is going to be absolutely crucial because WWE needs to address this immediately and definitively. Does Jacob Fatu come out and explain his reasoning, cutting a promo about why he felt compelled to leave the bloodline and join the Vision? Does the bloodline respond with immediate violence, attacking the Vision and making it clear that this betrayal will not go unpunished? Does Roman Reigns try to convince Fatu to come back, offering him opportunities or making promises about his future in the bloodline? Does someone else in the family step up as the voice of anger and retribution, maybe Solo Sikoa or the Usos taking the lead and seeking revenge? All of these possibilities exist, and the direction WWE chooses will determine whether this angle becomes a legendary storyline or a disappointing misfire. The potential matches coming out of this storyline are incredibly exciting from a pure in-ring perspective, even though the emotional context makes them difficult to think about without feeling angry. Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns would be an absolute dream match, two incredibly talented members of the same family with completely different styles going to war in the ring. Jacob Fatu and Obafemi as a tag team could be the most physically dominant duo WWE has seen in years, two massive men who can move like cruiserweights creating absolute chaos. The Vision versus the Bloodline in various combinations could produce months of incredible television, pay-per-view matches that mean something beyond just athletic competition, encounters that have real emotional stakes because they're about family and betrayal and competing visions for what professional wrestling should be. The merchandising implications are interesting too because WWE now has to figure out how to handle Jacob Fatu's image and his association with these two groups. Do they immediately start producing Vision merchandise featuring Fatu alongside Trick Williams and Obafemi? Do they pull all the Bloodline merchandise that features Fatu? Do they create new designs that play on the betrayal angle, maybe showing Fatu torn between the two factions or highlighting his decision to choose ambition over family? Wrestling merchandise has always been about capturing moments and emotions, and this storyline provides so many powerful images and concepts that could translate to shirts, posters, and other products that fans would actually want to buy. Looking at the historical precedents for this kind of family betrayal in wrestling, we've seen it before but never quite at this scale or with this level of real-world family connection. You had Randy Orton turning on Evolution, but that wasn't family, that was just a faction. You had Seth Rollins turning on The Shield, but again, those weren't blood relatives, just wrestlers who'd been grouped together. You had various members of the Hart family having conflicts with each other, but those were usually presented as legitimate family disputes rather than someone completely abandoning their family to join their enemies. What Jacob Fatu has done is unprecedented in its combination of real family ties, established faction warfare, and complete rejection of everything his family represents, and that's why the reaction has been so visceral and so angry from people who understand what this means. The pressure on Jacob Fatu moving forward is going to be immense because now he has to prove that this decision was worth it, that joining the Vision was the right career move, that he can thrive outside of the bloodline structure and support system. If he succeeds, if he wins championships and main events pay-per-views and becomes a bigger star than he would have been staying with his family, then maybe history will judge this decision differently, maybe people will understand that he needed to break away to reach his full potential. But if he fails, if the Vision falls apart, if he ends up less successful and less relevant than he was as part of the bloodline, then this betrayal will haunt him for the rest of his career. He'll be forever remembered as the Anoa'i family member who turned his back on everything for nothing, who made the biggest mistake possible because he thought he was smarter and more talented than he actually was. What you need to do right now is make sure you're watching every episode of Smackdown going forward because this story is going to develop rapidly and you don't want to miss any chapter of what promises to be the most emotionally charged storyline of the year. Make sure you're engaged in the conversations happening online, sharing your opinions about whether Jacob Fatu made the right choice, debating the merits of tradition versus ambition, discussing what you think should happen next. Make sure you're supporting the content by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving comments about your reaction to this betrayal because the wrestling community processes these major storyline developments together, and your voice matters in that conversation. Jacob Fatu returning to SmackDown and joining the Vision is the most controversial decision of 2025 so far, and whether you agree with it or hate it, you cannot deny that it's compelling television that has everyone talking, and that's ultimately what professional wrestling is supposed to do, create moments and emotions and reactions that transcend the scripted nature of the product and make you feel something real.